Hello everyone, I'm Brazen Eagle and thank you for joining me here. So, today from the Western Journal, this is a topic that I've heard, and you've probably heard a little bit about. Should the U.S. women's soccer team be paid just as equally as men? Well, let's discover why they should or should not, or maybe even be paid more than men. Let us learn. So, why the U.S. women's soccer team is paid less than the men, as told by Ben Shapiro. Now, regardless of your opinion on Ben Shapiro, he's pretty right about this one. He's pretty darn accurate. And he's very, very correct. Regardless. With the U.S. women's national soccer team off to a strong start in the World Cup, the debate over whether the female players should receive the same pay as their male counterparts is back in the spotlight. Many have taken up the equal pay mantle, including former tennis star Billie Jean King, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Democratic presidential candidates Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Elizabeth Warren. On Wednesday, conservative commentator Ben Shapiro explained why he disagrees with the notion that it's sexist for the U.S. Soccer Federation to pay the men's national team more than the women's team, speaking on The Ben Shapiro Show. The Daily Wire editor-in-chief referenced recent op-eds in the Washington Post and the New York Times arguing for equal pay, until the USSF and other sports organizers stop viewing female athletes as inherently inferior and their play as fundamentally substandard. Women will have to combine on-field victories with off-field activism. Lindsay Parks Piper and Tate Royer wrote in the Post in an article titled "The Biggest Fight Facing the U.S. Women's Soccer Team Isn't on the Field." In the Times piece headlined "Sex, the World Cup, and the Breaking Up the Boys Club," Emily Ryle, who teaches philosophy at the University of Gloucestershire, argued, "Great sport requires only three things: excellence of skill, uncertainty of outcome, and a crescendo of drama until the last seconds. Gender or sex is irrelevant." Ooh, it's relevant to say some of those things, particularly excellence of skill, Shapiro said. He pointed to the undeniable physical differences between men and women, which most people don't understand. Men are generally better at sports than women because they have different musculature than women and different skill sets than women, he said. In the same way that a Little League game is not the same as a Major League Baseball game. Certain sports are not the same if men and women play them. The WNBA is not the same as the NBA. There's a reason no one is paying to watch women shoot layups. Shapiro called the notion that women are being victimized by U.S. soccer absolutely silly. He noted that while the MLS has been successful, every attempt to start a women's soccer league has failed. That's because there's just not enough of a crowd of people who are willing to watch women play soccer, he said. Shapiro pointed to the difference in earnings between the men's and women's World Cups. In 2010, World Cup for men brought in about $4 billion. Jesus, he said. Whereas the Women's World Cup 1 year later, in 2011, brought in $73 million in revenue. Wow. The reason for that is because people aren't as interested in women playing soccer as men playing soccer. Not because they're sexist, but because women are not as good at soccer as men, he said. Shapiro noted that the U.S. women's team lost 5-2 to the under-15 FC Dallas Boys Club in 2017, and the Australian women's team was defeated 7-0 by the Newcastle Jets under-15 boys in 2016. My goodness. People say those were just scrimmages, he said. Okay, sure. Imagine the men's World Cup team losing to an under-14 boys team. Is that a thing that would happen unless they actually threw the game? Of course not. Men and women are different. If we cannot acknowledge that there is a difference between the men and the women, then I do not know why we have eyeballs and functioning prefrontal cortexes. Shapiro said he wouldn't tune into a tennis match featuring women's star Serena Williams against Justine Henin, as referenced in Ryle's op-ed, but he would prefer to watch men's star Rafael Nadal play Roger Federer, because they are both better players than the two women. Serena Williams, before she sort of got on the woke bandwagon with regard to men and women, had the exact same skill sets. She would openly admit she cannot play in the men's league because she is not a man and does not have the same skill set as men, he said. Williams has a 13.33 universal tennis rating, putting her in the range of NCAA Division I men's players. In March 28, women from the women's national soccer team filed a discrimination lawsuit against U.S. Soccer, arguing that their earning less than the men's team is a violation of the Equal Pay Act and the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Those, at this point, sound like mistakes. Anyways, the women earned $3,600 per game, while the men earned $5,000 per game, according to Vox. Well, you can't trust Vox because Vox is completely untrustworthy. But regardless. Also, the women received $15,000 for bonuses for winning the World Cup in 2015, whereas the men received $55,000 bonuses for making it to the round 16 in 2014. So, I would say Shapiro lays it out pretty darn well in this piece. I mean, you can love him, you can hate him. I certainly have mixed feelings about him, but Shapiro is absolutely correct. He brings the facts and logic to the piece. Women's soccer. Just think about it. Women's soccer. It's not soccer. It's women's soccer. It's just not as interesting. I don't even watch soccer. Well, then why would I watch women's soccer? First of all, like what I'm trying to generalize here, at least here in the United States, people, she looks really ugly. Anyways, people just aren't as excited about soccer as, like basketball or baseball or football. I mean, I'm wrong for some people, but generally, soccer isn't regarded as the sport that can get people really pumped about. For some people, yes, but for most Americans, soccer is kind of like, oh, okay, it's there. And secondly, for most sports, both men and women don't watch women's sports. How many women do you know that actually watch and follow women's sports teams? I couldn't tell you, out of all the females I know, that maybe there's 2 or 3 out of all the females I know that might watch women's sports. Maybe. I like that Shapiro pointed out the drastic differences between the earnings of the men's and women's World Cup. Guys, these guys in 2010, they brought in $4 frickin' billion. That's so much money, $4 billion, because guys were playing soccer. Now compare that to the women's. In 2011, the women brought in $73 million. That's an insane world of difference. Why should, why? I mean, why should women get paid the same if they don't bring in as much money? The men. How much more money did the men bring between those 2 years? The men, I already did the math for you, brought in $3,927,000,000 more dollars than women did in the next year. So then why should women earn as much if they don't bring in as much? Or even comparable levels? Where is the logic in that? Why should they be paid equal if they don't bring in equal? Or at least comparatively close to equal? And like Shapiro brought up later, women compete at a drastically lower level than men in professional sports. Shapiro said both the U.S. women's and Australian women's professional soccer teams both lost to under 15-year-old boys in 2016 and 2017. And I've got that article right here from CBS Sports. FC Dallas under 15 boys squad beat the U.S. women's national team in a scrimmage. And this is from 2017, to let you know. In preparation for 2 upcoming friendlies against Russia, the U.S. women's national team played the FC Dallas U-15 boys academy team on Sunday and fell 5-2, according to FC Dallas' official website. This friendly game came as the U.S. looked to tune up before taking on Russia on Thursday night in a friendly. Just last month, the U.S. lost the She Believes Cup, winning the first game over Germany before losing to England and France. Of course, this match against the Academy team was very informal and should not be a major cause for alarm. The U.S. surely wasn't going to go all out, with the main goal being to get some minutes on the pitch, build chemistry when it comes to moving the ball around, and improve defensive shape and get ready for Russia. The game will, however, serve as a great antidote for the kids on the FC Dallas squad to tell their grandchildren about one day. It also speaks highly of the level of academy development MLS teams are doing these days. It's one thing, like I said, if the women's team lost 4-3, so it's pretty even, but they lost 5-2, and sure, you could say that they weren't really competing, but compare that to the Australian women's team. They couldn't even score against boys who were still going through puberty. That's insanely pathetic. Why should women be paid the same to their male counterparts if they can't even beat boys going through puberty? That's insane. Shapiro even states that there is a difference. Wow, there's a difference between men and women? Now, he doesn't understand how much of a massive difference there is, or the pre-programmed nature of men and women, but at least Shapiro knows that there is a difference. It's called testosterone. But regardless, people would rather watch men generally over women because men are competing at the top. I mean, that's just it. Men are competing at the top. They have to be the best. And women can try as hard as they want, but they just don't have enough testosterone to get to that same level. In sports, men absolutely dominate against women. Of course, like I said, they have to be the literal best ones, the best players out of everyone. The testosterone is just, some would say, is the hormone of the gods. There is no group, no other group that can compete at this type of level. People watch these sports, professional soccer, professional basketball, professional football, baseball, because it is the pinnacle of human athleticism. No one wants to watch women compete at a lower level high school team. There's a reason why no one goes to the JV teams for football players in high school. There's a reason why, except unless you're the parents. Regardless, I'm sure, though, we're going to continue hearing about this BS and complaining again within the next couple years. It seems to be constantly brought up again and again, but the facts and logic just do not change. So, women, though, they're just not as entertaining as men in sports. But, I always have a but here, unless the women start shedding clothes. Like it or leave it, enjoy it. Regardless, thank you very much for watching. We've discovered why women should not be paid the same as their male counterparts. I'm Brazen Eagle, and I hope you have a great day.